എല്ലാവർക്കും നമസ്കാരം. എന്തുകൊണ്ട് കേരളത്തിൽ വീണ്ടും ഒരു ഇടതുപക്ഷ സർക്കാർ അധികാരത്തിൽ വരണം? ഈ ചോദ്യത്തിൻ്റെ ഉത്തരത്തിലേക്ക് വിരൽ ചൂണ്ടുന്ന പ്രമുഖ വ്യക്തിത്വങ്ങളുടെ പ്രഭാഷണ പരമ്പരയാണ് ചിന്ത പബ്ലിഷേഴ്സ് സംഘടിപ്പിച്ചിട്ടുള്ളത്. ട്രൈ കോണ്ടിനെൻ്റൽ സെൻറ്റർ ഫോർ സോഷ്യൽ റിസർച്ച് സെൻറ്റർ എക്സിക്യൂട്ടീവ് ഡയറക്ടറും ലെഫ്റ്റ് ചീഫ് എഡിറ്ററുമായ വിജയപ്രസാദ്, ഏഷ്യൻ കോളേജ് ഓഫ് ജേർണലിസം ചെയർമാൻ ശശികുമാർ, ഫ്രണ്ട് ലൈൻ എഡിറ്റർ എൻ റാം, എഴുത്തുകാരനും കവിയുമായ സച്ചിദാനന്ദൻ, പീപ്പിൾസ് ഹെൽത്ത് മൂവ്മെൻറ്റ് ഗ്ലോബൽ കോർഡിനേറ്റർ ഡോക്ടർ ടി സുന്ദരരാമൻ, ഇന്ത്യൻ എൻവയോൺമെൻറ്റൽ ആക്ടിവിസ്റ്റ് ഡോക്ടർ വന്ദന ശിവ, ന്യൂസ് ക്ലിക്ക് ഫൗണ്ടർ എഡിറ്റർ പ്രബീർ പുക്കസ്തായ എന്നിവർ വിവിധ ദിവസങ്ങളിലായി പ്രഭാഷണത്തിൽ നമ്മോടൊപ്പം പങ്കുചേരുന്നുണ്ട്. എല്ലാവർക്കും ഈ പരിപാടിയിലേക്ക് സ്വാഗതം.
We are meeting here online today to discuss a very crucial issue on why the left at this juncture in Indian politics needs to be re-elected in Kerala. Comrades and friends, we are at a very critical juncture in India's journey as a constitutional republic, where parliament and laws are being used to undermine the rule of law and dismantle the constitution brick by brick. Recent developments, the passage of the GNCTD Act, undermining the power of the elected Delhi State Assembly, the abrogation of Article 370, the passage of the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, the amendments to the UAPA in 2019, the counter-terrorism law, the previous amendments to the UAPA in 2004 and 2008, when the only opposition in parliament was by the left parties. We have a majoritarian government drunk on power, undermining the electoral process through money in politics. The whole electoral bonds issue, the non-transparency and the corporate control over democracy, all these are extremely worrying for anybody, any citizen concerned with the constitution and deepening of democracy. Friends, at this juncture, every effort is being made, apart from anything else, to undermine the constitutional tenet of federalism. Our constitution is a unique construct where the unitary form of government at the center is formed on the bedrock of federalism, where states are given equal power and control over many and several issues. But what have we seen happening in the past several months and several years, particularly since 2014? Under our constitution, in the union list, there are 97 subjects. The states have 66 subjects, and a concurrent list had 47 subjects. What happens when the center, a majoritarian government, tries to impinge on the rights, constitutional rights and authority of the states? We have seen this in several fields post-2014. We have seen this when the land ordinance was sought to be passed in the first year itself in October, when the entire united opposition protested against it. What did the central government do? Given the fact that they could not bulldoze their way at that point in the Rajya Sabha, the state governments belonging to the same party amended their land laws to basically nullify the right to fair compensation, the right to transparency in land acquisition, and the proviso that ensured that if land acquisition is not completed, the land should be returned to the original owner, the tiller, or the small owner. What has the central government done with the farm laws? Again, an assault on federalism. So the left today, the left in Kerala, with its commitment to rationality, science, redistribution of resources, Chapter 4 of the Constitution, which is the directive principles, dignified wage labor, public health system, the manner in which the corona COVID-19 crisis was handled, the manner in which people's power was galvanized to handle the COVID-19 pandemic crisis, the manner in which the floods were handled, other tragedies were handled. All these tell us that we need a party like the left, LDF in Kerala, which has a vision of people's mandate, people's sovereignty, people's power, the preamble of the constitution as the heart and soul of governance. There are very, very crucial issues affecting us today, and not least significant are what is happening to our agrarian sector and the working sector. We have seen during the pandemic, when nothing else was happening, an assault on trade union organization and labor laws that have been fought hard for over 150 years, and the code bills have been brought in Parliament. Who are the forces and which are the mass organizations that are opposing the farm bills, that are opposing the labor code bills? Largely, the mass organizations opposing these retrograde anti-people measures, which cut at dignified labor, are left organizations, the mass organizations belonging to the left party. So it's very, very crucial at this stage that Kerala, that has seen a unique form of people's participation in governance, in the panchayat level upwards, needs to re-elect the left. We also believe, as friends of the left, that the left needs to be more left than it can be and it has been. Because it is only the left that can have a vision vis-a-vis police reform, vis-a-vis counter-terror legislation, draconian laws like UAPA, and ensure that there is no misuse of either police power or counter-terror legislation. There is also the cultural dimension, the majoritarian dimension, the communal dimension. Today, India's very existence as a secular democratic republic is threatened with the assault on the fundamentals of composite nationhood. This country, thanks to the extremely vibrant national movement that lasted over 125 to 150 years, in which also left forces and left parties and the Communist Party played such an integral part, gave itself not just a democracy, but a republican constitution, where the power and sovereignty vested in the people. During our Constituent Assembly debates and the intricate issues that were discussed, in the midst of the Constituent Assembly debates, the Constituent Assembly itself, we had the tragedy of partition, where religion-based nationhood partially won. But despite that and in spite that, this country, with its forward-looking leadership, in which the left played a part, rejected religion-based nationhood and composite nationhood as the fundamentals of Indian citizenship. The LDF government in Kerala was among the first governments to reject the Citizenship Amendment Act 2019, challenging it in Parliament, rejecting the 3 farm bills, rejecting the kind of labor codes that are attempted to be thrust upon the working people of this country by an extremely uncaring central government, which is showing itself to be simply a puppet in the hand of crony capitalist interests. We are seeing the complete vesting of public capital and public power and transfer of public capital and public power to corporate hands. To prevent this, to agitate against this, to see a different form and model of government, we need a vision from the left that looks at resources as public resources, that looks at health, transport, education, common school system as something which needs to emanate for the wider good and the wider democratic purpose and people, not for private interests in education, transport, and health. And for that end, towards reaching that end, we need the left to get stronger and reaffirm its presence in Kerala. There is also the cultural dimension of the nation. And it's not just about Hindutva. which is nothing to do with Hinduism, as Kerala so well knows it, with the movement of Narayan Guru and reform and radical reform and its commitment to rationality and spirituality and faith at the same time. But at the heart of our constitutional federalism is also cultural acceptance and reawakening. Reawakening of the myriad plurality, cultural plurality, religious plurality, linguistic plurality that is India. Nowhere in the world do we see this experiment at work, where this diversity and pluralism has coexisted for generations, coexisted, nurtured each other, thrived on each other's knowledge and growth, cultural dimensions, artisanry. Whether it is the entry of Islam or Christianity before that, the footprints first came to the state of Kerala. And the way the people and the rulers of Kerala welcomed them with skepticism but rationality, with open arms. It was not like the invasions in the north. It was not like the incursions of the north. And therefore Kerala, with its multifaceted diversity and pluralism, its lived commitment to secularism, has a very unique place in the India of today. And to lead that pluralism and diversity, to ensure people-centered development, to ensure that the directive principles of state policy, the redistribution of resources, like Baba Sahib Ambedkar said, not just minimum labor, but dignified labor for every woman and man and every person. We need the left to be re-elected in the state of Kerala. We are seeing a dangerous trend in India's politics, whether it is international standards or international assessment, the happiness index, the hunger index, the human resources index, the freedom index, at every level, India is being seen to moving towards an autocracy. To be able to redeem that, to control that trend, to combat this authoritarian centralism that is an attack on India's federalism. A rooted, committed left in Kerala that can give a result-oriented response which keeps people and the people of Kerala at the center of it, regardless of caste, creed, gender, or community. That is the ideal that India should look towards. And therefore, India is looking towards this election in Kerala with great hope and enthusiasm. We hope also that the model that will emerge, as has emerged in the past, we've seen with the science movement, public health system, will even more and deepen commitment to public health, public education, and public transport. Because eventually, our resources that belong to the people and to this land need to be controlled by the public and not by private commercial interests. Hate has become a political weapon. Hate has become a weapon of the media. Even the mainstream quote-unquote commercial media uses hatred as capital to demonize our own people, to combat that hatred, to combat this kind of cultural domination of one section, minor section, over the rest of India's pluralism and democracy. We need a people-centric left vision that actually believes in the rationality, compassion, and humanity of all the Indian people, not just one section of the Indian people. Kerala is known not just as God's own country, but possibly also people's own country. If you look at the science movement, the literacy movement, the rich contribution to cinema, theater, culture, reform, and rationality. Nowhere more than now do we need a reassertion of that for the rest of the India to gain courage from and gain inspiration from. I'd also like to say a few words about the brazen misuse of central agencies, of which so many of us have been victim, and brazenly even the opposition leader and the ruling party in Kerala has been victim. It's extremely easy. It's extremely easy for a autocratic government that is not concerned with implementing any decent, good policies to simply use the threat of action by central agencies, vilification, maligning, to completely discredit a government. But it's not possible if a government that is rooted with the people and for the people, has worked for the people, even that motive can backfire. I was reflecting on last India's Independence Day as to what are the major issues that a party in power at the state or the center needs to look at and address. What did we see during 1 year of the COVID-19 lockdown? We saw a completely arrogant government, a government that should have realized that the states in this country, that the state governments in this country would know how to deal with the pandemic better than anybody else. An interstate council should have been founded, consultation should have happened, and best lessons, best practices from each state should have informed each other. Unfortunately, that did not happen. And our migrant workers, our farmers, our Adivasis, our other forest dwelling communities, our working class, there was an assault on all our sections by the misuse of parliament and majoritarian procedure during the pandemic. So one really hopes that with the coming back of the left in Kerala, those people's issues, which have got to do with empowerment of women, reducing of crimes against women, a sensitized police force, demand for the repeal of those malevolent provisions of the UAPA, we look for such leadership from a left government like that in Kerala. We also wish for the implementation of the Forest Rights Act so that Adivasis and other forest dwellers in Kerala and other parts of the country can recognize their rights over their land that they've tilled for centuries. And we've seen in Kerala with Kutumbashri and so many wonderful programs that the government has implemented, that it is possible for real democracy to take to the roots. And wherever there are gaps, this can even happen more and more in Kerala. So in interest of a really federal polity, in the interest of cultural diversity and pluralism, in the interest of the implementation of the directive principles of state policy, where we are supposed to, as governments, look after the nutrition of our people. And what is happening instead is that more and more people are being pushed below the poverty line. Hunger is besetting our cities. And in that connection, the amazing universalization of the PDS scheme, the increase of food items and nutrients under the PDS scheme in Kerala over the last 2 years has been an experiment in success, and that it can be continued and implemented. So the health of the people, the well-being of the people can be taken care of. The right to dissent in a democracy needs to be preserved. The right to protest, even among those who may not agree with left policies, needs to be preserved. And our constitution, which today is being hollowed out by the government at the center, needs to be rejuvenated and protected. It's a very, very tough task for just one state government to do. But somehow one has faith that with the dynamism that the Kerala government, the LDF government, the current chief minister, and the people of Kerala have shown, it is possible for one state to lead the way. And there are so many ways in which the country is looking towards Kerala in this moment of bleakness in the rest of the country. So as a dear, dear friend of the left, the deepest of respect and hope for this election, one really hopes that the people of Kerala are able to recognize how crucial it is to have a government that is of the people, for the people, and by the people. and respects the sovereignty of the Indian people and the people of Kerala above anything else. What else is there to say? When one teaches history or social sciences, when one reads about science or mathematics or physics, when one looks at the situation of history textbooks or the new education policy, one constantly looks towards the examples set early India, medieval India, early medieval India, modern India. So many parts of the country, but definitely always Kerala gives an example of shared coexistence, dignified living, protest, struggle, assertion, clarity, and constantly pushing towards radical things like land reform, farm reform, agrarian reform, not in the neoliberal sense, but in the small farmer, sharecropper sense. And we've seen in Kerala, the MSP of certain products, including paddy, is at a certain rate. In Kerala, it can be as much as 18 to 25% higher. I don't want to reel off figures here, but things have worked. Things have worked in Kerala, have been shown to work because of the consistent presence of the left Communist Party in governance in the state. One hopes that that presence continues, sharpens, deepens and grows, and the commitment of the left Democratic Front government to further deepening its pro-people policies, to correcting wherever development has become corporate-centric, continues to happen, because we believe it can only happen with the left in Kerala. Thank you so much for giving me this opportunity, and we all await the results of this election with bated breath. Thank you.